All right, guys, welcome here to CantonRep.com. I'm Todd Porter, the special projects editor here, and we are going to talk about binge-worthy streaming episodes to watch because, you know, the weather here in Ohio and Northeast Ohio is not going to get much better over the next couple weeks. Matter of fact, I think it's going to be about 0 degrees next Wednesday, and I'm joined by Alison Mattis and Dan Kane.
Hi.
And, hi, guys. We're going to talk about some of the binge-worthy shows that we've seen this year. And Alison, you and the two of us have seen the same show that it's kind of a creepy show, but you can't turn away.
Oh my gosh, it's so creepy, but that's why I loved it. So when the weather was really bad this weekend, I started streaming You, which is on Netflix. And as I think most people know, it started on Lifetime. Like nobody was interested in it. Then they put it on Netflix and all of a sudden everybody watched it, like apparently 40 million households or something, according to Netflix. And if you're not familiar, the premise is basically that this guy named Joe, who manages a bookstore, a woman walks into his store and it's just like sort of weirdly obsessed with her, kind of struck love at first sight, but he decides that he needs to get to know her better before he can decide whether or not to commit. So he starts basically stalking her and a whole bunch of other just really creepy things happen. And it sucks you in. You just have to know what he's going to do. And you weirdly find yourself rooting for him. And it made me question my own emotional and mental health at one point. So
yeah, I agree with you. You do sort of find yourself pulling for him because he's this creepy stalker dude who has finally scored the woman of his dreams, so to speak. And some of the measures that he goes through to get to know her are just weird. And Dan, you know, I don't know what your most favorite binge-worthy show that you've watched recently is, but you know, why don't you come in and bring a different perspective to this?
I've got a couple that are sort of creepy. There's one called Bodyguard. It is a series from England. It's about a war veteran with PTSD who's assigned to become the bodyguard for a controversial politician who's a woman, and it gets extremely complex, and there's terrorism, and it's very exciting, and I have trouble going to bed at night because I didn't want to turn it off. You know, you get to the end of a cliffhanger and you don't want to, you know, you want to keep going.
Are they long episodes or are they just
8-hour-long episodes?
All right, that's not so bad.
So you can watch that in one day on a snowy Sunday.
Let's stick with the creep factor here a little bit. If you haven't seen Bloodline yet, make sure you watch that. I think it's 3 seasons in, and it's a really neat show. It's centered in the town of Isla Morada, which is down in the Florida Keys, if you've ever been there, and it centers around a family's B&B seaside hotel. And just it's one of those drama thrillers, and it's a cop thriller, and all these crazy things happen in it. And actually, I was disappointed after season 3 because it was no longer going to be around. And it stars Kyle Chandler, who played in Friday Night Lights, and he plays the lead character, John Rayburn. Alison, what else have you watched here recently?
Hey, Todd, what channel is that on, by the way?
I believe
that's
Netflix. That's a net. Yeah, Bloodline is a Netflix.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Alison, what else have you watched here recently?
So I have another creepy one, but it's extra creepy because it's true. So I got hooked on Manhunt Unabomber, which is also on Netflix. And basically what they've done is they've taken, you know, all of like the court records and the writings from the Unabomber and turned it into this, not really documentary, but like just a drama, but it's all based on truth about how the FBI profiled the Unabomber and found him. And it is fascinating.
All right, I'm gonna mark that one down because the weather's not going to get much better this weekend. So I'll see if I can make my way through that one. The only problem with these is sometimes, you know, I'm worried about bed sores sitting in because I got to sort of rotate every now and then because you sit there so long and you just get sucked into these. Dan, do you ever find yourself, you know, just having to get up and walk around just to get a little bit of exercise and burn some of those calories?
Well, got to go down to the refrigerator and get some snacks at some point. Come on. There's one called Mindhunter, not Manhunter. Mindhunter that's also creepy, which is this is a fiction show with actors. It's about FBI agents in the early 70s who were pioneering psychological profiling of serial killers. and they're interviewing serial killers at prisons, and it is so suspenseful and creepy. It's just great. It's produced by David Fincher, who's the director who made Seven and Fight Club and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and it has Jonathan Groff. He's one of the stars who was on Glee. Some people might remember. That one, I've watched the whole thing twice, so that says something.
The show that I'm currently into right now, I'm a little bit late to the party on this, The Americans, which was on FX. I believe it's 8 seasons long, and maybe the 8th season just finished up here in 2018. It's on Amazon Prime. It stars Michael Reese and Kerry Russell, and they play these KGB spies who have sort of embedded themselves as American citizens here, and they go through this struggle as a married couple, a married spy couple, and Michael Reese is he sees himself becoming more Americanized, and Kerry Russell is sort of still fighting that. So highly recommend, if you haven't seen that one yet, Amazon Prime. It's the Americans, and it's one of those things too, Alison, where I find myself weirdly rooting for the Russian spies. My brother-in-law tells me that I don't know how you can root for the commie spies in America right now, but you watch the show and you find yourself pulling for them.
You just get emotionally attached.
Well, they're more interesting, the villains, usually. Come on.
Yeah, speaking of villains, I mean, if you haven't, House of Cards it's nothing but villains. And other than the last season, I thought House of Cards was very well done. The last season, I think, because of all the controversy surrounding House of Cards, it sort of ended abruptly, and it was only like 7 or 8 episodes long, and it was just, to me, it was a disappointing end. But all the seasons prior to that were interesting. You talk about art imitating life. I mean, there really is some genuinely weird things that happen in House of Cards that you can sort of see playing out in real life, and that was so many years ahead. And by the way, there's like 2 or 3 callbacks to Canton, Ohio in House of Cards.
How about something a little less sinister? We got anything?
I do. My sister got me and my boyfriend hooked on this show over Thanksgiving break, and it's called American Vandal. And it is super funny. It's a mockumentary sort of done in the style of Making a Murderer. And it's these 2 high school kids who are trying to figure out who really spray painted, can I say genitalia, on teachers' cars in the high school parking lot. And so this one kid has gotten expelled because of it, but these 2 students are convinced he didn't do it. So they go on this whole like interview tour to try to figure out who really did. And it's weirdly fun, and I got very hooked.
That's been on my list for a while. I've been watching this. There's a show called Sex Education that just started, and I inhaled that in like one day. It's a British comedy show. It starts off pretty raunchy, I will say. It's not one you want to watch with your kids. It's about a socially awkward high school boy whose mother is a sex therapist. And so she's very frank about everything around the house. She's played by Gillian Anderson from X-Files, and the show is hilarious. It starts off kind of like American Pie, but then as it progresses, you get to know the characters a lot better. And there is a good storyline.
Ozark is one
pretty R-rated.
Yeah, Ozark is one that I watched. I think it was in the fall we finished that. I think it's 3 seasons long. It has Jason Bateman in it. He plays the lead, and Laura Linney. And Jason Bateman plays a button-down financial advisor, CPA type, who finds himself laundering money for the Mexican drug cartel. And he moves from Chicago to the Ozarks, and it's really weird. He can't get himself out of this, and every decision that he makes, he ends up becoming deeper and deeper involved. I don't know. Have you guys seen Shameless? Either of you guys watch Shameless?
Yes.
Yeah, you got to make sure.
I watched the first season. I think it's kind of exhausting. I really liked it. I don't know if I could watch like 6 seasons of that. Every episode is so wild. It's the most dysfunctional family.
Well, it's just a dysfunctional family.
The father is so alcoholic. He's like falling down drunk. And this, teen daughter is kind of trying to hold the family together. Maybe she's in her early 20s.
Yeah, Emmy Rossum plays the female lead in that, and William H. Macy plays the male lead in it. And
that's right.
They do a nice job. It is just one of those weird shows. Hey guys, before we wrap up here, let's go maybe one off the beaten path show that you've watched. For me, it would be a show called, and it's on Netflix, it's Amazing Hotels. They got me hooked in I was late, one night kind of just searching through Netflix for things that I haven't seen before. And this is more of a documentary where they go to hotels around the country, and they got me hooked in with the very first one they filmed in Singapore from the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, which is a hotel that has these 2 towered structures that go up. And then it's got a pool, and it's a high-rise hotel, and it's got a pool that stretches from one structure to the other structure in the middle of it. So it's really cool, and the water sort of overflows. Looks like it's flowing over the sides of this skyscraper. So they got me hooked with that, and I'll admit, I'm a nerd. I watched it.
Not nerdy.
I would say mine's not off the, I don't know if it's off the beaten path, but I will admit I have watched every single available season of the Great British Baking Show, because you can just like put it on in the background while you're doing something else. And I don't know, I just love it. And they are so matter of fact, and they act like these massive creations they're making are no big deal. And I don't know, it's addicting.
I like a show that I just stumbled across called Atypical, which is a sitcom dramedy about a high school boy with autism. He's on the autism spectrum, who starts dating, and his parents' marriage at the same time is falling apart. And they're played by Jennifer Jason Leigh and Michael Rappaport. And it's actually awkwardly funny. Atypical.
Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you guys taking the time out to tell us about some of your binge-worthy streaming shows. And no matter where you are at around the country watching this, if you're here in Stark County, remember it's going to be real cold this weekend and next week. So wrap up with a blanket, build a fire, take some notes down, and watch some of these binge-worthy shows. And we appreciate you guys watching us here on cantonrep.com or wherever you may have tuned into us.